In the Oscar Best Actor race, we have an early frontrunner. And I think Pete Hammond of Deadline Hollywood agrees with me. I'm Tom O'Neill of Gold Derby, and Pete, Gary Oldman is the early favorite. Why?
Yeah, how could he not be? You have an actor who loses himself completely in this role of Winston Churchill in Darkest Hour, but also not just because of the makeup job or whatever, which always impresses actors. They always go, oh, he looks just like him. But also because he captures the essence of Churchill, and in a surprising way, I thought, because I always thought Winston Churchill was more of a heroic figure, but he was a convoluted kind of politician, too.
Yeah, they show him scars and all.
And they show him scars and all, and I thought that was to the credit of Darkest Hour, that it did it, and to Gary Oldman's performance, that doesn't beg for you to look at, like you're watching some statue of some great person,
Do you know,
but a real human being.
Do you know that the last 3 people who played Churchill at the Emmys, for example, all won? It's like, play Churchill, you win an Emmy. And of course, at the Oscars, they love to see someone like Helen Mirren and the Queen. They love to see you portray a famous person and nail it.
Absolutely, and that's why, and particularly in recent years, the Oscars have gone to so many actors and actresses, obviously, who have played these kinds of roles, real-life people, and that they can compare to something and say, whoa, that's acting. But it takes a great actor, and Gary Oldman is not the obvious choice, I didn't think, in the beginning, to play Churchill.
No, I wouldn't have thought so either.
Pulls it off brilliantly. So whatever you think of Darkest Hour, and it's a very good movie, he so dominates it. It really is the Gary Oldman show, no question about it. So I think that makes him unquestionably the front runner in this category, which is weaker this year than the Best Actor category normally is.
Well, unless Daniel Day-Lewis comes roaring back. We haven't seen Phantom Thread
well,
yet. He's won 3 times.
And he's announced that this is his last movie, and that certainly
Doesn't he always
can't
say
hurt.
that, though?
Well, once before when he became a cobbler in Italy. But, but he came back.
Right,
so
right.
Do we believe him that it is? I don't know. I have no idea why he quit movies making this film. All I know is Daniel Day-Lewis, when he does appear in a movie, is always a contender, at least until we see that movie. Now, and we haven't seen that movie yet. So we'll see.
Going down the list of current odds at Gold Derby, Gary Oldman is 1, Daniel Day-Lewis 2. And then we have Timothee Chalamet from Call Me By Your Name. They sometimes do like to go for the newcomer here, usually more on the actor's side. But this is suddenly a breakout performance, isn't it?
Yeah, he's terrific in this. I feel like I discovered him in a little movie called Miss Stevens that I grabbed onto and showed to my screening series, and I even got a very nice note from him when he found out that I was doing that. And I didn't know who he was from anything, but I saw this kid in this movie playing a drama student doing a monologue from Death of a Salesman, and I said, who is that? Who is that? And sometimes an actor comes along that you go, who is he and where's he been?
Now you can't miss him. Now he's in Lady Bird.
He's in everything. He's in Hostels, which is coming out this year as well. But in those movies, it's just small supporting roles. In this one, he's got a big leading role, and he's terrific in it. The only mark against him would be too much too soon, too young, maybe to go against such veterans as are possibly in this category. But you're right. Every now and then, someone comes along that's like that. And he's definitely the it boy this year for the Oscars.
Overdue veterans win here all the time. Jeff Bridges comes to mind and others. And Jake Gyllenhaal is suddenly now in that physically transformative role, the Boston Marathon.
He's terrific in it. Sadly, the movie opened and closed, you know, in a week or two. I don't know why, but it just did no business, and it's a shame because he's sensational in it. Now, if they hold that against him, or they just don't bother to watch the movie, or the studio doesn't do the level of a campaign that a movie that won't be widely seen like this one isn't, needs, then Jake Gyllenhaal, who so should have been nominated for Nightcrawler, was so robbed of that nomination.
I agree with
you.
you.
He deserves it just for that, but this is a great performance, and I hope that they see that. Of course, Tom Hanks, who's regularly overlooked lately.
He keeps getting 3 times. Former, I mean, double winner, of course, a long time on and off member of the Board of Governors.
I know, and he's been so good in so many movies lately and always on the cutting room floor as far as
Bridge of
Oscars
Spies
go.
last year, he wasn't nominated.
Oh, yeah, and Captain Phillips and
the Walt Disney thing.
Saving Mr. Banks.
Saving Mr. Banks, right.
Yeah, it's sad.
Boy, Tom, you got to ramp up your PR with the Academy a little bit more. You know, what about these other folks like Andrew Garfield?
He's again great. That movie's not doing great at the box office. It's a very, you know, it's sort of the theory of everything kind of role, like an Eddie Redmayne. I thought it was a very difficult role, and actors may recognize that if they see it. That just to deliver the dialogue with this breathing machine that he's hooked up to, he has to do all the rhythms.
He plays a polio victim who is paralyzed.
Yeah, at age 28, and he's very good in that picture, as is Claire Foy opposite him.
But
they're pushing her into supporting.
On this list, who else do you like?
Denzel Washington, I thought was terrific in Roman Israel Esquire, and since its Toronto debut, which was medium well received, not so much, they've cut 12 minutes out of the movie. They've tightened it. So I'm anxious to see the picture again. I thought it's a tour de force for Denzel and a different kind of
He had a tour de force last year for Fences.
And he's good every year, and that's why he has so many nominations.
Right.
I think Denzel's definitely in the game, especially if they've tightened the film as they say they have. And so that's the way the Academy members are going to see it. And rather than just one showing they had at Toronto, which they now say was basically a very fancy kind of preview to see where they needed to go. And so the picture wasn't done then. So I would look for him for sure. I would say the others on this list that you have here, and I guess I should say them out loud, you don't have the one that I think is maybe the best performance by an actor this year. And it came out so early it's forgotten, but it's Richard Gere in Norman. He gave the role of his career and the best performance I've ever seen him do. People need to check that out. Sony Pictures Classics sent it out early to the Academy, so they've had it early. It may be the only one they've had now. That and Maudie and a couple of other movies have gone out on screeners. That's one to look for, a real dark horse here that if people see that role, he's never been nominated for an Oscar. I'm going to keep pushing for you, Richard Gere. I think he's terrific in that.
Some of these other contenders, like James Franco, I think would be more likely to show up for at the Globes.
Yeah, a little. It's in the comedy category. Probably a little too quirky for a lot of Academy members to. They'd have to have seen the movie that it's based on, which is The Room. It's called The Disaster Artist, and it's about the making of this cult horrible movie called The Room. But Franco's great, and he directed it, and I really like Franco in pretty much everything he does. He's such an interesting actor. I don't see Matt Damon sneaking in, maybe for the Globes for downsizing in comedy.
I agree with that.
Definitely not Suburbicon. Chadwick Boseman in Marshall, he's very good, but I doubt that that's going to get in there at this point. And Hugh Jackman is being campaigned for Logan, interestingly enough, not The Greatest Showman.
And that's because the buzz on Latest Showman is that it's a commercial film.
Yeah, commercial movie with basically music as its main thing for Oscars. But Hugh Jackman in Logan, the last thing, it would be a very unusual thing to get nominated for, playing Wolverine. But this isn't so much Wolverine, which is why it's not called Wolverine or X-Men or anything like that. It's called Logan, his other name. And he's fantastic in that movie, but that may be a long push. And let me also put out a word, because they're going to do a big campaign for him, and every year they try. But Andy Serkis in War for the Planet of the Apes, which is a movie people need to see, he is great. It's like a Shakespearean performance as Caesar, that ape, and it's a great swan song to that character, I say. Andy Serkis. I know it's motion capture, performance capture, it's controversial. How much of it is him, how much of it isn't? It doesn't matter. This guy is such a brilliant actor, and when you see that performance, especially in scenes opposite Woody Harrelson where they're together, really great acting on any level.